What's up, guys? Vital Syntax here, and this is going to be my in-depth review of the Logitech G400s Optical Gaming Mouse. This is one of their lower-end mice as far as price points go, especially in their gaming lineup. I think it runs between $50 and $60, but that isn't to say it's one of their lower-end mice. It definitely has an extremely good performing sensor, in my opinion, the best one that they offer, but doesn't have some of the build quality, some of the features that you find in their higher-end mice like the G500s or the G700, which is a wireless sensor or wireless mouse. But this is a really good mouse, especially when you're talking about bang for buck. You're getting extremely comfortable ergonomics and in my opinion, flawless sensor that performs just as good as the SteelSeries Rival sensor, just as well as the Razer DeathAdder 2013 sensor. Now it uses the Avago S3095 sensor, where the DeathAdder is using the S3988. In my opinion, they feel the exact same. I can't tell a difference. They both feel flawless. They have little to no hardware acceleration, positive or negative, no angle snapping, none of that nonsense that you don't want as a first-person shooter gamer. And it just feels really responsive. It has a 1000 hertz polling rate, so that means that there's 1 millisecond of response time between when your mouse sends a signal and when your computer receives that signal. There's obviously other latency issues. Your computer has to process those signals, and the chip inside your mouse has to make calculations on your movement and send them in the first place. So don't be deceived. Just because you have a 1 millisecond response time mouse with a 1000 hertz polling rate, which is the limit over USB, that doesn't necessarily mean that the mouse overall has a 1 millisecond input latency. They're two completely different things, and it's kind of the same idea when you think about a monitor. A monitor might have a 2 millisecond gray to gray response time, which is how fast it can switch between different shades of gray. Whereas there might be a different measurement of actually how long it takes overall for an image to be processed and displayed after it's sent to your monitor through your display cable, or from your graphics card over your display cable. So without getting into too much detail, just don't be deceived. 1 millisecond response time does not mean 1 millisecond of input latency. And that's something that I feel like I can feel, but a difference between optical and laser mice. It feels like optical mice have less input latency. I don't have no physical or scientific measurements to back that up. It's something that you kind of feel when you're using the mouse. It's either that, or it's the acceleration that's built into the hardware on some of the laser mice that I've used. Regardless, if you want to see more about and hear more about my opinions on optical versus laser mice, check out my previous review on the SteelSeries Rival, which is sitting right over here. But in this video, we're going to focus on the Logitech G400s. So it's one of the cheaper mice that they offer. You've got the G500s, which is essentially the same mouse with a laser sensor. I've used that mouse. It's actually about 20 feet away from me right now. You've got the G700, which is their wireless option. But in my opinion, this is one of the best options on anybody's lineup, any manufacturer's lineup, for bang for the buck, because you're getting an extremely good sensor and extremely comfortable ergonomics with this mouse for a very cheap price point, which makes it very competitive. Now, there's some things that they skimped on, I feel like, to achieve that price point. And the first thing is the scroll wheel. It's not necessarily a bad scroll wheel. It actually is quite a durable scroll wheel. It's satisfying. It doesn't feel mushy. It doesn't feel loose. It feels tactile, very responsive. But it also looks pretty crappy. It looks like a scroll wheel that they took off of an old Dell mouse that you could pick up for like $5 at Best Buy. So I would have preferred to have a slightly nicer scroll wheel, something like you see on the SteelSeries Rival. This is a very smooth, very sleek looking scroll wheel with some cool lighting effects. It's once again not really that important, but it's something that I thought I would point out. The second thing I think they kind of skimped on to get that lower price point is the cable. So this thing employs a plastic cable. It's not a rubber cable, it's a plastic cable. Whereas something like the SteelSeries Rival employs a rubber cable, which it's not a grippy rubber, but it's probably my least favorite when it comes to cables, because a rubber cable is going to kind of grip onto surfaces a little bit more. This is really more of a plastic rubber hybrid, but once again, it's not a huge issue. It's just I would have preferred to have a braided cable on both of these mice. It makes the mouse higher quality. It makes the cable more durable. It reduces the amount of drag you're going to have on your surface. But once again, it's a very, very minor thing. It shouldn't be something that makes you buy or not buy this mouse. Like I said in my previous review of the SteelSeries Rival, the two most important things for me, and I think for a lot of people when it comes to a mouse, are one, the sensor performance, and number two, the comfort. Everything else is kind of just I'd like to have a really cool looking mouse with cool LEDs and great software. I want to have a nice cable. I want to have good build quality. I want to have all these extra things, but ultimately those two things are the most important things. Is the optical performance. It has to have a flawless sensor that's one-to-one movement with whatever I'm doing in game, or on my mouse pad with my mouse has to be what's happening in game. And there's very few mice out on the market that actually do that. And I feel like this is one of them, so I would strongly recommend it if it fits your palm grip or your hand grip. So speaking of hand grip, let's talk about how this mouse feels in the hand. What type of hand grip styles suit it. If you guys didn't see my previous video, I talked about the three types of handling styles of how you can hold a mouse. The first one being a palm, where you essentially place the mouse all the way inside of your palm and then wrap your fingers around. Somewhat like this. Your palm is not resting on your mouse surface, it's actually resting on the mouse itself, so you can move your entire arm. And that's something a lot of low DPI gamers will do, including myself, because you have a lot more freedom, a lot more movement. Instead, where with the fingertip or the claw grip, you often have your wrist anchored to the mouse pad like this, and you're limited to just your wrist movement. So you can see I'm only moving from here to here with that movement, whereas if I was a palm grip, I can take my entire mouse pad, and I don't even have that large of a mouse pad. It's a Corsair M400. There's definitely larger mouse pads on the market, like the QCK Extra Heavy or whatever, the QCK Plus. There's some really big mouse pads, especially from SteelSeries. They make some massive ones. So if you're a low DPI gamer, palm grip is probably the way you're gonna go. Fingertip is essentially where you hold the mouse with your fingertips, just like that, and it kind of just sits there. You're not putting your palm on the mouse, you're placing your palm on the surface and then kind of just using your fingertips to control the mouse. And then a claw is essentially you just put your hand like a claw and you kind of hold it like this. So it's almost like a fingertip is like more relaxed and then claw is more like this. Now you can have kind of a mix between the two. You can have a claw grip that's also a palm grip, something like that, instead of having your hands flat. So I mean, it's not exactly, everybody holds their mouse one of three ways. You can kind of have a mix of the three, but that's just a general rule of thumb. So in my opinion, this mouse suits large to medium sized hands using a palm grip. It also suits fingertip grip and claw grip for medium and large hands, as well as small hands. Typically when you have a larger mouse, it kind of suits everybody, whereas if you have a smaller mouse, it only suits the people with smaller hands. Because if you have a small mouse, only small people can really, or small-handed people can really use it. Whereas if you have a large mouse, then even a guy with small hands can, kind of use his palm on it. You might not be able to reach all the buttons and things like that, but I unfortunately don't have small hands, here to demonstrate. But I have fairly large hands. I'm a 6'5" guy, and you can see pretty large hands. And this is one of the very few mice. This and the SteelSeries Rival are really the two mice that I've ever tried that I can actually palm comfortably. And I'll talk more about comfort in a second in regards to palm and the SteelSeries Rival. But it's definitely a large mouse for people that want to use a palm grip. Now, once again, it can suit those other grips if you would so desire. Overall appearances of this mouse are ugly. That's my opinion. Yours can be different. I think that the design of this thing is hideous, actually. That doesn't really matter to me. I would much rather have comfort over looks, but I think these accents are ugly. I think that the colors of the mouse are ugly. I think these buttons are ugly. I think this thing in the center is ugly. I think the scroll wheel is ugly. I think the shape of the mouse just looks like a big blob. Something like the SteelSeries Rival has sharp, cool looking edges to it. It's got some grit to it. It's got cool LEDs, all these other things. And the Death Adder, the Death Adder looks drop dead sexy, but ultimately it doesn't matter, right? It guess if you're more worried about looks than you are comfort, then you might have your priorities wrong. But this is an ugly mouse. That's something that I've gotten over. Ugly in my opinion. I've heard some people think that it looks really cool. So it's once again kind of up to your personal opinion. But aside from it being ugly, and aside from it having some, slightly shabby scroll wheel and mouse cable, this is a solid mouse. This is an extremely solid mouse. And I think out of the 3 mice that I'm trying, the SteelSeries Rival, the Death Adder, and the Logitech G400, this is the most comfortable mouse. So it has the same performing sensor as the other 3. Yeah, it's the most comfortable. Ideally, this should be my favorite out of the 3. And I think it is, but it's kind of hard to tell. Now let's go more into detail about the actual kind of surfaces and stuff we've got here. So on the left side, we've got this really nice thumb indent, and it's a kind of a soft touch feel, but it doesn't leave fingerprints. It's very very nice surface, where something like the soft touch finish on the SteelSeries Rival, you can see fingerprints over here. If I kind of get my hands there, a little spit on my hands, you can see you kind of have to clean it off. I'm not a huge fan of the soft touch finish. It's very comfortable, but it leaves behind kind of residue. It doesn't really look polished. It just leaves fingerprints. It leaves grime. I actually much prefer this surface on the sides. That I'm not really sure what they did differently. One thing I know that they did is they have hydrophobic coating, I believe, across the entire surface. And essentially what that does is it will repel liquids. So oils from your hand, water, anything else that might be on your hands that's moist, and it'll stay dry, and it works really well. Even if your hand gets slightly moist or sweaty, you take it off, the mouse does not look sweaty at all. It might look for like a split second and it just evaporates, which is a really cool feature. I wish all mice were covered in hydrophobic coating. It actually really works. So this is the left side here with your thumb dimple. Works extremely comfortable. That dimple only really works if you're fingertipping it, for me, because my thumb kind of fits there. If I have it in my palm, my thumb's much farther forward like this, so I don't really get to take advantage of this little lip. But this lip along the top side gives me better control over lifting the mouse, because it gives me more control. It kind of gives me a lip to hold on to, and I'll talk more about that on this side as well, because this is a lip that's really, really nice. As far as the side buttons go, I don't like the shape or size of them. I much prefer the larger size on the SteelSeries Rival, and also very similar to the size on the Death Adder. But the ones on here are just kind of small, and they're oval shaped. I want them to be shaped like my thumb would be shaped. You see the Rival here, it actually is kind of shaped like the shape of your thumb, and you can kind of just roll your thumb onto it. Whereas this thing, you can't really do that. You have to like go over this ridge and then manually press it. It's not a big thing, but it is a noticeable thing. They are tactile. They feel quite nice. Very clicky. So good switches overall. Just not a huge fan of the shape. It's not a big issue though. On the top, you got quite a few buttons. You got left and right click. You've got scroll wheel, you've got increased DPI, decreased DPI, and then a third button that I don't even know what's bound to, but you can rebind any of those to whatever you want. But you've got 3 extra buttons on the top here versus the Rival, which only has that one central button right here. So kind of nice if you need extra buttons on your mouse. I don't really use any extra buttons myself, but whatever. And then this top surface is different than the soft side touches. It's kind of a plasticky gunmetal finish look to it. Once again, hydrophobic coating on here. I really like this surface as well. It doesn't give you quite as much grip as these rubber sidings, because it's more slippery and smooth, which is fine because you're not really lifting up. You're lifting up with the sides of the mouse, so that's where you need the traction. Whereas the top of the mouse stays nice and cool and nice and doesn't get moist or anything like that from the hydrophobic coating they have on there and just the plastic in general. So and then on the right side you've got that lip again, and this lip is it's such a small feature, but it makes such a huge difference. Because let me show you real quickly in comparison to the Rival. If I palm this mouse on the right side, you've got this flush surface, right? It's kind of this flush surface. You got a rubber coating here and everything, but it's a smooth as far as the shape of it goes. It doesn't have any like ledges to hold on to. So when you palm it, my pinky and ring finger don't really have anywhere to go. So I either just rest them on the mouse pad like this, or I have to do this type of thing, where I'm bending them. How can I show this to you? Where I'm bending them like this to kind of grip onto it. So all my other fingers are kind of fully extended, except for these two. I can't move my fingers individually, except for these two fingers. These ones are kind of just hanging off to the side, and they don't really have anything to hold on to. They don't really have any place to go. So they kind of just curl up, almost like a claw grip, but these ones are my middle finger and pointer finger are straight out. That way I can grip onto the mouse. And I can hold on with my thumb, and I can hold on with my ring and pinky finger. Whereas on this mouse, instead of placing both of these fingers on this ledge, I actually place my ring finger right here on this ledge, and then my pinky is what goes under this little ledge. I don't know if that illustrated it very well, but I ended up putting my first three fingers on top of the mouse, and then only my thumb and pinky on the sides of the mouse. And it's extremely comfortable that way. And I've never held a mouse like that before. You can see all my fingers are fully extended, and they all have something to hold on to or something to rest on. You know, these three fingers are resting on the mouse, and then these two fingers are holding on to it. And it feels like I'm holding something that was molded to my hand. Whereas on this one, same goes for the Death Adder, and I'll talk more about that in the review. You know, these two fingers, my ring or my pointer and my middle finger, you know, they extend fully and it feels great. But then these ones don't really these fingers don't really have anywhere to go. So I don't know. It's a slight difference in the way you hold your mouse. Whether that's going to be something that's comfortable for you or not, it's hard to say. For me, this is the most comfortable mouse out of the three. So really, there's no reason why it shouldn't be my favorite. You know, there's those couple build quality things that I talked about: the scroll wheel, the wire, the shape and size of the buttons, and the look of it is just hideous. But I need to put those things aside. I need to realize that this is the best comfort and the, you know, equally best sensor of the three. So I'm trying to convince myself to choose this one and keep with this one and get rid of the Rival and the Death Adder and send those back to Amazon as returns. But it's hard because this thing's so damn ugly. So anyway, I'll make my ultimate decision in the next couple days with my roundup video where I could do the full-on comparison between the three. But that's a look at the Death Adder, or sorry, not the Death Adder, the G400s. I'm not going to show you guys the software. It's pretty straightforward. It works great. It doesn't have any crash issues. You have quite a bit of control over macros and things like that. But I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube that show the software. My purpose isn't really to show an unboxing and show you stuff that you guys can learn about online. It's you know, just by reading it. It's to show you a user experience from my point of view that you can't really get from people that just buy the mouse and unbox it. I've been using this mouse for 2 weeks now. Quite a bit longer than the Rival. I've only had the Rival for about a week now, and this one I've had for, you know, twice that length. And I think that's enough time to really use it and try it out. Last thing I want to mention, because I forgot to mention in my Rival review, is liftoff distance. So liftoff distance is the amount of distance that it takes for your mouse to stop tracking when you lift it off your surface. Now the Razer, or the SteelSeries Rival has a very high liftoff distance, which is a personal preference thing. I don't like it. I want extremely low. I want like 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters at most. That way, when I pick up my mouse, I'm not accidentally tracking while it's like half off the mouse pad, but you know, I still haven't lifted it far enough so it stops reading it. There's a fix for it though, and it's simply just putting a piece of tape, clear Scotch tape, on the sensor, and it lowered the liftoff distance from about 6 millimeters down to about 2. So with that little hack, if you have one of these mice or a mouse that has a liftoff distance issue, you might want to try that little tape trick. I did it on the Death Adder 3.5G a while back, and it worked great. As far as the G400s goes, it's already great. It feels like it's about 2-3 millimeters of liftoff distance, which is about perfect for me. The Death Adder also has a fairly low liftoff distance, and it even has the ability to customize it, which is the best option because you can get best of both worlds. But just thought I'd mention liftoff distance on this thing's really good out of the box if you like low liftoff distances. As far as the mouse feet go, we've got one little one on the side here and two large ones on the top and bottom. They're more of a flat surface. I like the rival, how it has more of a rounded surface, and it has, you know, one in each corner that are slightly, quite a bit smaller. I feel like this gives you more or less friction, so you get a better glide and you can move the mouse a little bit faster. But this one, honestly, these feet are very slippery, so it doesn't really feel that much different. It's honestly probably not noticeable at all. But I thought it's just something I'd mention. So anyway, to summarize, this mouse is kick-ass. I can highly recommend it to anybody that's looking for a gaming mouse, especially people that are palm grip with a larger hand that are playing first-person shooter gamers or first-person shooter games. I am losing my train of thought here. Talking too long. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too long because this one was 20 minutes as well as the last one. Anyway, I'll try and make them shorter in the future. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.